Hello and welcome back, guys, to the Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Pascal, 10.1 kilograms lighter. And on the other side, it is Steve, who is, I don't know, because he's always weighing himself in pounds, 14.3 pounds lighter.
It's probably close, actually.
Something around there, right? So, because I watched our
like
video, our first official vlog that came out here on Thursday last week, where you said 202 on the dot in regards to pounds, right? And that was, I think, the heaviest you've been.
Yeah.
And now I think you had your lowest weigh in today here this week. Isn't that correct? Yeah,
so I'm averaging 187 pounds this week. So that'll be 15 pounds down from peak mass, which I touched 202 like twice. I was hovering at 200 for a long time. So there was a bit of the 2 pounds is probably mostly just water and like carbs just in my gut.
2 pounds only?
Yeah, there was more than 2 pounds of water.
Generous. Yeah, generously put like 2 pounds. For me, it's probably more like, I don't know, 6 pounds or so.
Yeah, it just goes to show because I had a deload and then I added like an active recovery week where I was feeling really shit. So I basically ended up under eating and I was in a tiny deficit probably, but I dropped like 5 pounds in that time, which was super frustrating, but basically cleared all the water weight before I started the proper cut.
Yeah. How are you feeling, by the way? Now, you took your deload or started your deload, right?
So yeah, I'm 3 days. No, today will be my 4th day of deloading. So yeah, feel good. It's really interesting. I wonder if you're the same, Pascal. I'm now like 5.5 weeks into dieting, so you're longer in. But I have times where I'm just like, man, I feel great. Like I feel like I'm not even dieting. I have energy. I can run around with Ada. I feel really good. And then I have times in the day where I'm like, oh, I feel a bit like I'm having like a low blood sugar, and I've got like a horrible feeling of like pretty hard hunger, and I'm like, why? And those feelings have started creeping in more, but generally I have very good energy and I feel very sharp. Just at times I'm like, I need to just have like an apple or something because I'm
crazy
dipping.
Because your caloric deficit isn't that aggressive, is it?
Considering in like the 5 weeks, I've been in like 1,000 calorie deficit. So I've been losing, if I average out my rate of loss, like 2 pounds. So it's been pretty aggressive. And this week is probably lesser because my training volume, like my sessions are taking half the time. I'm doing like 3,000 less steps every single day. And in fact, some days, if I want like an extra 100 calories, I've just been kind of having it if I feel like I just want it. Because I've been in the, as we've spoken about, the kind of, what am I doing this week? Typically, I would deload and diet break. That's like my standard approach. That's just what Steve does. Whereas recently, I've been thinking about things more, kind of thinking, well, do I really need to be taking the diet break this time? I feel very good. Taking more from your point of view and like your perspective of not being as favorable towards them, which definitely influenced me. And so I've been a bit back and forth, and I'd spoken to Mike about it. Just had James Krieger on the podcast, spoke to James about it. And this is actually one of the horrible things that I've realized with self-coaching. I tend to be very good when I'm in the mesocycle, when I'm in the mix, spot on. But you've probably noticed, Pascal, when I get into deloads and I have more time to think, I start questioning my approach a lot and I start overthinking things a lot. Like, God bless Charlotte, she's listened to me blab about this enough times already, and I'm still not like completely decided. So that's why this week I was just like, I'm going to still be in a deficit, but it will probably be a lesser of a deficit. So I'm kind of like, I'm not strictly dieting through it like I have been, but I'm certainly not in maintenance calories this week. Yeah. And I've pretty much decided from my own thinking, I'm on target, like I'm actually ahead of target. And next diet break will be in another 5 weeks probably. Next deload will be in 5 weeks. I'll definitely be taking a diet break then. I'm pretty sure I will be, because I've lost a load of weight. Then it will be more and more warranted. It will make more and more sense. And assuming I'm still ahead or on schedule, there's no reason not to. And then it will only be another mesocycle before an extended break, which I'm right now not looking forward to. And I'm not sure I will look forward to it at the time, but I know it'll be necessary. And I'm kind of not sure looking at my physique, I'm still not sure like how many pounds above stage I think I am and how many pounds maybe I gained muscle mass wise. Sometimes I look at myself and I think I'm really quite lean. Other times I'm like, no, you've got loads more fat like around the quads and the glutes. So yeah, I guess it's the game of when you're self-coached. And that's why someone asked me on a story, like, why are you self-coached? And I think for probably after the time, so like the last 4 months, 5 months of prep, when I really dig, that it will be the time I definitely consider getting a coach. And if it was anyone, it would be Jared Feather, just because his philosophies and mindset is similar to my own. So I feel like he'd be good to just outsource that kind of load off my mind. But yeah, I blabbed on a lot there.
No, it's very interesting, and especially like the thing with James Krieger and also Mike, that you actually talk with them, so they already have a little bit differing views on diet breaks and when to take them, but they aren't too far apart. So James Krieger thinks that they can be valuable, especially for a competitor, especially taking them on a deload because of the potential risk of maybe losing something. But at the same time, he's not as certain in regards to whether it is like significant. But then he brings up a very good point, and that is, if you are a competitor, your job and your main sole focus is to maintain as much lean muscle tissue as possible, right? So it's a very good point. Even though that there aren't very many studies to confirm that there is true muscle loss happening, it could potentially be the case. And why not then be on the safe side and take a diet break? While at the same time, I am. So for me personally, right? So you also then talk with me, and I'm someone who is quite on the contrary side of things when it comes to taking diet breaks. I think that they have their place, absolutely. And I think that the leaner you're getting, the more likely it is that you should take them just for the security kind of aspect of things, right? But at the same time, then I'm very, very skeptical about the true nature, or not the true nature, but the likelihood of true muscle loss occurring. And even someone like Brett Freeman, right? And he is a very, very good case study. He's 2 times Bantam world champion now. He worked even with Cliff Wilson, and thing is that he himself said, like, I was surprised of how aggressive I still can be towards the end of my prep without seeing any kind of reduction in muscle mass. And this is, of course, only observational, right? But this just makes me then question the theory of muscle loss and what studies are showing to us sometimes, where then someone like James and Mike is actually taking their approach, or their approach in favor of diet breaks, the information where they're taking that from and where the idea stems from. That then, though, conflicts with sometimes even case studies. And I think that someone like Cliff Wilson, for example, maybe one of the best people to actually ask for something like this. Because this is dealing with a population that you hardly ever have in like a study environment. And you can only then draw conclusions from the few case studies that we have. And those few case studies, then taking them into a lab and maybe taking some, muscle samples from that is probably not going to happen. So what you then can do is maybe like a DEXA scan or so, right? And we know that DEXA scans are like, yeah, right? So there's always an error margin. And thus, I don't know. For me personally, there are just too many things that speak against taking a diet break that early in a prep, especially like considering that you are feeling so good. So when it comes to the psychological aspect of taking a diet break, which in my opinion is probably the only reason in the beginning of a contest prep why you want to take it, because the likelihood of muscle loss happening when your body fat is still relatively high, when you're not really feeling the negative adaptations of dieting, and you still feel absolutely all right, and you said it yourself, and same goes for me, I still don't really feel like as if I'm dieting, right? And thus, when I'm going into a deload, I don't think that then the muscle loss is occurring because I'm still training, I'm still inducing a hypertrophic stimulus, right? I don't know. There are just too many things for me personally that speak against taking an approach like this that early in a prep. Later down the line, I'm much more open to actually then consider it also not just for myself, but also then for athletes. Maybe implement it more often than I like to do it right now. But at the same time, someone in your case, someone in my case, I think that diet breaks are simply not needed right now. And maybe what you end up doing is just staying in a caloric deficit over the entirety of the length for too long. And this is something that we've brought up in the past already, like where we talked about shorter contest prep versus longer contest prep. And if you're then always implementing 1 week of a diet break, I don't think that the negative adaptations in that week, when you are getting to such lean levels and when you have been dieting for like 6 months straight, will actually do much for your overall physiological recovery, but more so it's just a psychological thing. And when it's not really granted and needed in the beginning from a psychological perspective, and especially not from a physiological perspective, I simply don't see the point of actually taking those.
Yeah, I came to the conclusion, and I think I don't know if I said this to James, I kind of felt like there wasn't a right or wrong answer. I could see the rationale for doing it. I can also absolutely see the rationale against doing it. And I am going to be talking to Mike about it. And I wondered if there maybe was something towards the way you deload, in that for people that take like a week off training, if they then diet through that, they're probably risking it even more so, like muscle loss, because they truly aren't stimulating the muscle. They aren't kind of giving that muscle protein synthesis kind of hit. Again, when they've got a lot of body fat, is that a risk? Do they lose muscle in a week? I don't know. And then the other approach is kind of like, obviously, Menno Henselmans does auto-regulated deloads, like one body part at a time. Again, you're not timing your deload, like you're not losing muscle in that one body part for deloading it for like that week. And then obviously our approach is like a week of deloading, but we actually go into the gym, we do stimulate the muscles. It's like, do we stimulate them significantly enough? Can you stimulate the muscles significantly enough to keep dieting and not risk muscle loss while still reducing fatigue enough so you come into the next mesocycle fresh and performing well? Because yeah, like you said, especially this early on within a diet, the only rationale is potentially you're securing any tiny bit of muscle that you could potentially lose. And it's like a very if and but. So I certainly think, like you said, when you're early on within a diet, like I am, like 5 weeks in, and you're still holding on to a plenty amount of body fat, I think, sure, you could take a diet break with your deload, but you also, I don't think that's necessarily absolutely the right answer. I think you could equally diet through it. And maybe then you diet slower through the rest of the mesocycle, if like mesocycles or weeks, and maybe you don't lose as much muscle through those. I don't know. It's like you said, it's such a minute period of time. I don't think we're ever going to get a confirmed absolute, this is the right answer. Yeah. I think the general recommendations from most of kind of the evidence-based population is like every 4 to 8 weeks, because any more frequent than that in your contest prep and you are extending it to an excessive amount of time. And I think I can see that maybe at the beginning of your kind of diet, every 8 weeks, and then towards the end, every 4 weeks. I think that makes probably quite logical sense that you increase the frequency that you go through them. But it's certainly an interesting discussion, but a lot of it is like theoretical and kind of pulling from studies to try and make it applicable to your like scenario, and it's not necessarily the case. And James did bring up Bill Campbell's study, which I want to look into, where apparently that was shown bodybuilders to use diet breaks and they saw less muscle mass loss towards stage. So that'll be interesting to see. But like you brought up, there's people like Brett Freeman. I know I've seen people who are way over stage weight and they diet the entire way down and they do very, very well on stage. And did they lose muscle? Maybe. Could they have done better if they didn't take diet breaks? Maybe. If they did take diet breaks, sorry. But they still look fantastic. And it's a definitely, I think we've come to a good answer of at the start of a contest prep. It's very much if you want to, and if you kind of, but it's not you definitely should. And that definitely should comes more reasonable if you are on track and much, much leaner.
Yeah. there are a couple of things that then spring to my mind, and that is like, maybe, and this is something that only an individual then can tell, right? Maybe those individuals who have seen less reduction in muscle mass loss throughout the prep, maybe they were also the ones who were not as fatigued on a regular basis. It is not just like, was it independent of the diet breaks that maybe their performance was better and thus they could hold on maybe to a little bit more muscle mass? This also then brings me to the other thing I always bring up when people are now saying, okay, longer preps, because there was a time where longer preps have been promoted for, but maybe it was the people that always promoted that and said like, yeah, I had better results when I prepped for longer. Maybe it is also due to the fact of the epigenetic factor. And this is something that I think not really people consider or maybe think about. So we kind of know that the longer you had muscle mass for, the more likely it is to stick around. And those people who are now prepping for longer periods of time are most of the time also the people who have past experiences with preps and with training age. So maybe the first time they stepped on stage, they have only been training for like 6 or 7 years, right? Thus, the likelihood may be there to actually see a higher reduction in overall skeletal muscle. Other than that, when they are then in the game for like 20 years, and they have been training for 20 years, I think that from an epigenetic factor, it is much more likely that they hold on to then the muscle mass. Was it then, and this is a valid question that needs to be asked then in that scenario, was it the longer prep that then caused more muscle retention, or was it simply the epigenetic factor that they've been in that game for such a long time, and the body and the physiology now holds on to that muscle mass much more than it had in previous years, because the muscle mass wasn't around for such a long time.
Yeah, I think there's certainly a lot of, like, you can't put everyone in a vacuum, can you?
No,
and you can't
absolutely.
have all twins or triplets doing it, so you have absolute control.
And in the end, it is kind of
tricky.
In the end, it is a question that doesn't really matter. I'm not saying that it is redundant or we shouldn't really investigate it more deeply, because I think that we should, because it's always good to get closer to the truth, to know actually what to do. But at the same time, it is the typical thing where people are then saying like, mate, you're just overthinking. Go in there, train hard, do the diet, do what you're supposed to be doing, and that's basically it, right? And even the people who are then taking the diet breaks, who do everything to the T and everything correctly, right, and had a smooth ride when it comes to the prep, could possibly be the ones who are not the most successful on stage, right? Because there has been that other guy who was just a genetic freak and a workhorse, and he was just able to grind through the prep. He had a horrendous prep, but still he has been able to grind through it and succeeds. So in the end, it's just like, once again, is it absolutely important to actually make it to stage? Absolutely not. But at the same time, it may be valuable for us to know in the future.
Yeah, I think it's so funny when you look at people, and I think the listeners will probably be the same. I can flick through my Instagram and I can see people way more jacked than maybe I'll ever be. I'll see natural champions, world competitors, elite level, and I look at their training and I'm like, fuck you.
Yes.
And I don't mean this to besmirch those people, but they won't be watching this because they simply don't need to, because they are that elite individual that can train in a certain way and do that well. And this is what I had that discussion with Mike, and it's like, when can you call it it's just their genetics? And it's like, well, if they're doing a lot of things wrong and seeing a lot of things go right, then you can probably call it. And there's definitely, like you said, there's people that can do all the wrong things and get results despite what they do, not because of. And then people maybe like us, who we could potentially do everything perfectly, but no one would necessarily know, you would never know, but also no one would give a shit, because it's like, well, are you going to go and become a WNBF pro? Well, I'm not going to say we're not, but we're certainly not guaranteed to be. And we're not like, people aren't looking at us and be like, oh, those guys, yeah, there's no way they're not going pro. So yeah, it's that's just life though, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And yeah, but interesting nonetheless. So
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside. But you're right, and something I'm doing a vlog on this week, and something that's going to become very apparent in that vlog is how you can get in your own head so much. And as I get deeper in prep, I know I do it more, and I think I actually am probably someone who's quite coachable, but only if I truly trust that person, and I have to trust them and their decision and not go into detail and try and modify it and ask loads of questions, because I can see myself, I do that with myself. So if I then do it with them, there's no point because they're not coaching me then. I'm trying to like pick holes and try and find different answers. And it's like that person who asks the same question to 20 different experts, hoping that they get the answer that suits them, rather than actually just asking one expert they trust, taking that answer and be like, cool, I'm going to run with that, see how I do.
One of my athletes actually, he wants to give it a try to coach himself. And I was basically, and he brought up me as an example, right? And also you, like, okay, yeah, Steve and you're coaching yourself, right? And I basically said, yeah, hold on. I'm not coaching myself because I want to. I wish that there is someone out there which I can absolutely connect with and where I'm just like 100% certain and be like, okay, I give everything into your hands. But of course, for this, I have then to go out there and try to work with someone, because otherwise I'm absolutely biased in my opinion, right? Based on what I know from the outside, which is not a lot, of course. And I would love to actually have someone who I could work with. But the thing is, for me, it's not that much about the knowledge, because I think that there are many ways to roam. There are many different approaches to actually get successful. And in the end, when it comes to contest prep, it is basically, yes, there are different ways of getting there that are either a little bit maybe harder or a little bit easier. But in the end, it all boils down to the same fundamental principles. And thus, no one has the magic pill that actually gets you there. In the end, it is still you who needs to put in the work and effort to actually then make it and tick off the boxes on a continuous basis. So it's not about the fundamental principles where I'm just like, I want to work with this guy because he has the formulas. In the end, it doesn't matter, even though there are some discrepancies in the way or the methodologies of different coaches. I think that these maybe a couple of percentages don't make the true difference. It's more like the personal aspect. I would love to have someone on my side where I'm just like building that personal relationship. And this is also, of course, then dependent on the way you are being coached. And this is where our service comes into play, right? So there's a reason for why we are coaching the way we do and why I I'm working the way I do, because I think the most personal way you can coach someone is either, of course, face-to-face, but this is something that we don't do when it comes to online coaching, but then is the video a thing? And I don't know of that many people who actually offer that, because of course it requires just the technology at home, a proper location, proper internet connection, right? You can't really be on your foot and traveling all the time, because it just makes things harder. But this is the interaction I'm looking for. I'm not looking for email. This is too unpersonal for me, for me as a client then. And this is something that I need though. That personal relationship, that personal interaction. And if that's not there, that's not for me. And I'm yet to find someone who can give me that. Right? And because of that, once again, to come back to the original question of my client, it's not that I don't want a coach, but yet I haven't found one that I first and foremost trust from these methodology aspects, and also then would be able to give me the service I'm looking for.
That's a very good point. I mentioned Jared, and I don't think Jared will watch this, but I'm not sure. I don't think RP offer video. I think they are, from what I remember, a twice weekly email. I don't know if Jared probably doesn't operate any differently. And this is actually maybe why I don't know if I'll end up combining it, or at least last time I competed, the audience and long-time listeners will recognize or remember that. Sorry, I just had a really weird thought. Did we introduce this as Revive to Stage?
No.
We're still the improvement season.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. It just came into my head because I was thinking back when it was Revive Stage. I was like, should we be Revive Stage now? But I think we discussed it and it was like, it's not close enough yet to warrant the change, you, maybe. For me. But what was I saying? So in 2017, when I was competing, I consulted maybe once a month with Jared and Broderick, and more frequently actually towards the end, Broderick, and just digging his brain in terms of peak weeks and things like this. And I really like that. Not necessarily the consultation. I think it's because neither of them offer the video updates like we do. So it might be that I either just use the consultation route again with Jared, if we can get like a regular schedule, because that was always something that was very difficult with consultations, is making sure that they actually happen at a particular time. And response times are huge for contest prep, in my opinion. Like if a competitor asks a question and you don't get back to them for like 3 days, and there's no reason for that, as in you should be getting back to them because you're working, that's horrible for a competitor, especially as they get closer to stage. So that's something super important to me, as well as being able to make sure that, like, if I ask a question, I know it's going to get answered in a reasonable time. Otherwise, you do end up overthinking things to like a millionth degree. So no, I completely see, actually, you made a very good point that it's not only finding that person that you trust and respect and you think you'd have a good rapport with, but also can you connect with them via their coaching method, or do they even coach? Because like Mike is a good friend of mine, and I'd always jump at an opportunity if Mike would be available for coaching at that time, but then he is not going to probably be able to coach me like I want to be coached. And so it's a tricky one, at least.
Absolutely.
How's your week been anyway?
Good. Yeah, back to dieting, right? Yes. No, absolutely smooth transition back to the dieting. So it was finally a successful diet break for me. Now I actually shit down on diet breaks the entire time, and I actually took one myself here last week. It was a very successful diet break. I truly maintained my weight, didn't jump up by a kilogram or so, where it was like, sometimes you see that, sometimes it even goes down. And for me, it just maintained at around 81 kilograms. And then I went into the deficit, and in just the first 4 days, I hit a new low. This is something I hardly ever seen myself, because of the water fluctuations that simply occur with me. So this was very motivational for me to now get back, had such a successful diet break. But this was also due to the way I structured the diet break this time. I think I talked about it last week, didn't I? How I structure it.
Maybe.
In regards to, basically, I'm doing nearly everything the same, just eating more calories, but still coming from nearly the same food sources, same meal timings due to ghrelin spikes, still kept my step count up to keep those habits around. And now it didn't even feel like I took a diet break or took gas off the pedal, but physiologically probably I did, right? And this is something that you now talked about and where James talked about it, like sometimes you don't need, or you don't take the diet break just because you feel you need it. Of course, for me, it was due to my sickness, but that was basically, I didn't feel like I needed. And now it also, looking back in hindsight, I don't think that I lost any kind of time at all. Now I hit a new low after 4 days. Now I'm sitting in the sub 80s, which is very motivational. And also for me, same as for you, it has been, and this is something that I even said to a couple of my clients lately, it has been probably the smoothest cut I've ever done in my entire life. And I've done a lot of cutting phases. And it has never been that smooth, never been that unimpactful when it comes to stress. I don't feel stressed at all. It is basically like, I don't know, it doesn't really feel like dieting. It just went in there, do what you're supposed to be doing, ticking off the boxes on a continuous basis. I'm not really feeling lethargic. Sometimes, of course, you're feeling hungry here and there, but the frequency of hunger bouts is very minimal. I would say like maybe once per week where I'm feeling like a little bit hungrier, but nothing severe, nothing crazy. This is a hunger signal that could even come in an off season. This is how I would describe it. And that's why, I mean, I really can't complain. And that, after this period now with this diet break, and now already having lost nearly half the amount of the entire weight I wanted to lose, gives me another very, very motivational boost moving forward, especially considering that it's only January and I effectively could even diet for 6 months longer before I'm even stepping on stage. There's no way I won't make it to stage unless an external factor comes in or gets in my way, such as, I don't know, an incident in the family or so. But other than that, from my perspective, no way. For this, I'm too much in a groove of things. Things are just running too smoothly. You never know, of course, what is about to happen. But right now, it's just going absolutely fantastically. And I'm very stoked about it, as you can tell, or the way I'm describing things.
I'm really happy to hear that. And I'm sure everyone listening is really happy to hear that. Like I said a while ago, I'm actually more excited to see you shredded than I am to see me shredded. Out of interest, well, I have two questions. One is, did you notice any benefit of the diet break leading into this next mesocycle in terms of training versus when you diet through a deload? And then the other question is this, now that you've been so successful so far, is it becoming more and more likely that you'll be able to implement an extended diet break primer phase, and how are you feeling about that?
So the first question, yes, acutely. The first 2 sessions were great. And then after that, it was back to the normal. Like I went into Smith machine squats here 2 days ago, and my quads were just not there. It was just like they felt so wobbly, so not energetic. And I switched over to leg presses because I was just like, okay, it doesn't work here, but I want to do another knee flexion movement. So let's go over to the leg presses, get some volume in there. And that's what I did, right? So yeah, the first days though felt very, very strong, very, very good. I didn't overshoot or overdo it. So that this was the reason why I felt the way I did here on the lower body session. But yeah, so just an acute effect, nothing else, to be honest. Then other than that, in regards to the second question of the likelihood of me then implementing them more frequently in the future, perhaps. I think it's more likely now that I would err for a diet break, even though I don't want to take it or don't need to take it. Yeah.
My actual question, although that was a good answer, I should have asked that question as well. What about taking a because you've been losing so successfully? What about taking a primer phase? Because I know I think in your ideal world, you would have one plugged in there, but you hadn't plugged one in there. You hadn't planned necessarily for it. But if things went well, you were saying you'd probably be able to do it.
The rate of weight loss that I'm experiencing right now, I'm so much on schedule. I even thought that now the diet break, right? Let me just bring up my chart here. I thought the diet break will set me back just a little bit, right? I thought that I'm going to spike up maybe by 1 or 2 kilograms. Didn't happen. So because of that, I am supposed to actually weigh a minimum of 80.74 kilograms this week. I'm already sitting on average at around 79.8. So quite a significant difference, nearly a kilogram of a difference there, right? So this weight that I'm having right now should be the minimum weight that I would have in like 2 weeks from now. So it could possibly be that if I'm continuing to lose at that pace, which is at a minimum of 0.75% of body weight loss per week, when I'm also at around 0.9 or so, I'm absolutely in the green zone. And then I would buy myself some time later down the line to definitely maybe take a primer phase, maybe a shorter run, maybe something like 3 weeks or so. But that could very, very well happen. And towards the end, I have and this is something that I have prescribed here in my calendar. So let's say I'm cutting up until August, the beginning of August time, right? I have a period of time of 11 weeks where I'm aiming for at least a rate of weight loss of 0.25%. So it could, and that is like a minimum of rate loss, right? 0.25, which is not that fast anymore, of 11 weeks. So it could very well be that during those first initial weeks which starts at the end of May, leading into June, I'm still losing at a rate of 0.5%. And then I would be absolutely in the green zone of actually having enough time to actually make it.
Awesome. Yeah, because I guess there's still 6 months. And when you think about 6 months and 20 pounds, I don't know what that ends up being, but I think that ends up being pretty slow. But like you said, towards the end, and you've actually programmed, I think that's slower than I've even had in program for myself. I think I have the last month at 0.25 as my slowest rate. And the month before that, I have at 0.5. And I think I start even after my break at 0.75, but these plans always maybe change. And I was also going to ask you how you're feeling about how lean you are right now and whether or not that's changed your perspective on how much you have to lose.
Yeah, I don't feel that I'm that lean, to be honest. It is what it is, right? I mean, I think that I gained a decent amount of muscle mass in the off season, but maybe I have to even go lower than sub 70s. So what I'm aiming for right now is something like 68 kilograms, which is still far away from where I'm at right now. So let's just say that I am weighing on average right now 79.7 or what it was, right? It is still like 11 to 12 kilos to go, which towards the end, so probably when I'm going into the 75 kilogram mark, you can already see much more definition. This was the last time when I actually saw some veins popping up on my all across my upper body. So then going from 75 to 68, those 7 kilograms will make so much more of a difference in regards to the overall look than the previous 15 kilograms probably. But we'll have to see. It could very very well be that I have to go even lower.
What was it? Jeff Albert said like tweener stage?
The tweener stage, yeah.
That's kind of where we are right now, is it not? Yeah. Like where you're not depleted, lean, but you're not big.
Exactly. You're depleted. The muscle bellies don't refill out. But at the same time, you still carry on too much fat to actually then show the definition, even though that you are depleted. So you just look the absolute worst right now. So this is then the stage where many people give up when it comes to just a normal regular cutting phase. But for me right now, I got so detached from looking lean that I don't care anymore. It's just like, yeah, it is what it is. And I have one job to do, and that is getting to stage. And it doesn't matter what I look like on the way to stage.
Wait till you start getting separation in the quads. That's when it starts getting exciting. You're like, holy shit, like you never see those in your off season at all.
No, but you bring up a good point, because I was really so I think maybe you're the worst enemy yourself, in that you see yourself, you I don't know, maybe you're not seeing what other people are seeing. And this is once again where a coach may be a very good idea, because he stays objective and can tell you like, mate, you still have to lose like this amount. Or no, you look already quite great, but we still have maybe to push it even further or so, right? And right now it's just like, I don't know. I look at myself, and right now I'm walking around in the gym. I take a look at my quads in the mirror, and I just think like, holy shit, my quads are so small. Have they always been so small? And and then the doubts creep into your mind in regards to like, okay, here in this off season, I didn't really squat that regularly anymore. And then you start thinking like, did I push myself hard enough in regards to legs? Did I make the right calls in the exercise selection? Then you look back at other people who are just like pounding heavy compound lifts, and then you think like, am I missing out on those? And these things creep into your mind then, right? Especially when you are getting leaner and you kind of look flat, but at the same time, you look flat and fat, right? So, yeah.
I think it's going to be incredibly refreshing to the listeners to hear you talk that through, because I think a lot of, I have those thoughts regularly. And the time I'm at my best is when I'm trusting just myself in the process and I fly. And that's when my results are best. Whenever things aren't maybe going quite right, or if I've got a deload and I've got time to overthink things, that's when I'm like, oh, should I be doing that thing, or should I change this? And it's like, am I doing it well enough? Am I doing it like hard enough? And now and then I think I catch myself. I'm particularly like with technique and form. Sometimes, for example, like bent over rows, I have some attachment to like the load even now, and it's annoying. I'm like, looking back, I should lower the load, and I should actually take more time to perfect that technique. And it's because you get influenced easily from outside in. You're like, am I doing it? Like, no, I have to do heavy rows and blah blah blah. It's just it comes in all the time. I think it's just a human trait that we all have, unfortunately. And
I even started now switching over to more and more machines already now, because something like the incline barbell press, right? It is a fantastic. It works so well for me when I'm in the off season. I'm so strong on it, but it so quickly declines when I'm in a cutting phase, and that has always been the case. And this simply happened here once again, and it is so demotivational first and foremost, but at the second time, I simply don't feel my pecs then anymore. It's crazy. In the off season, it gives me the nastiest pump in my chest. When I'm now doing incline barbell presses, it's just like, I'm just feeling tired. That's all. All right. And when I go then over to like an incline machine press, I can finally, I'm reconnected with my chest, right? And I have then the feeling that it just gives me more. I don't know whether this is truly the case, because I don't know. I'm still biased. I'm still thinking that the compounds just trump it all. But do they really? I simply don't know sometimes. Sometimes it may be like a kind of stimulus to fatigue ratio, but stimulus to reward ratio in that regard. Like, okay, if you don't really connect with that one exercise anymore, even though that is a compound, will it give you as much as the machine does? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's, especially when you're in prep and you're depleted, I think it's related to like blood sugar potentially, and having that readily available, your concentration isn't quite there, and cognitively, if I can say that correctly, it's harder to like coordinate and concentrate a bit. And I think you don't feel quite as secure when you're a bit leaner as well. So I think moving from like barbell free weights to machines just allows you to be like, right, psychologically, I feel safe in this movement, first of all. And then you don't have to think about all the other kind of stability and all of that. So you can be a bit more forceful and think about that movement more. So I can see it myself at the moment. my last mesocycle, hack squats felt great. They still feel great. Barbell back squats, I'm nervous to try and maintain what I've just done in my first mesocycle, because they did maintain, but it was freaking hard. Of course, it's always hard. But now I'm like significantly lighter, trying to use the same weight. I think, it hurts to then lower the weight by like 10, 20 kilos.
Yeah.
Maybe it's nicer to move to a Smith machine and, I don't know, forget the weight a little bit more because you're not so attached to it, because I am attached to like a high bar squat. I just love it. Like you are the incline bench. So I can completely see that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just so hard to come to terms with it, because when you're so biased about these kind of things, and I'm not aware of much literature around like compounds versus machines when it comes to the overall hypertrophy. I don't know if that's even the right term for it. Yes, of course, a compound is what the name implies. A compound that works more than one muscle group, but so does a machine. You never truly isolate a muscle group. That's not even possible, right? And when you are on press, all you're doing then is just take out that stability portion of the lift, but you are still pressing with your triceps, having your anterior delts involved. The pecs are doing the work. So is there truly such a significant difference in the stimulus? And to be honest, I don't know. My biased me says, yeah, of course, you need to do the compound. But my rational self says, like, I don't think that there is.
And this is cool because this is something I'll be touching on for the membership site to plug it there. Right. Because I've just finished, I pretty much finished my slides for principled exercise selection for hypertrophy, which I'm excited to record the video and talk a bit more about, because some of those sort of questions do crop up. Should we get some questions?
Yeah, let's do that. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the podcast. Just wanted to take one moment of your time to actually talk about our coaching services over at Revive Stronger. We at Revive Stronger, we offer an incredible premium personal coaching service just for people like you, and I know you will love it. Do you want to work with us? Here's what I need you to do. Head over to revivestronger.com. Go up to the coaching tab. Click on online coaching. Once there, read through the requirements and what it takes to be an online client. Once finished, hit apply now and you're only one step away from applying to our services. Fill out the Google form and you're done. And that was basically it. A coach is going to reach out to you shortly, and then it's Team Revive Stronger. Yeah, let's do that.
Otherwise there'll be no time.
Yeah, 45 minutes in already. So our typical supporter, he's always getting all of the questions here, right? We end up only answering like 3 questions, and he's always the one answering asking those. That is Andrew Potacek. Will Pascal ever stop being sick and making excuses and get to stage? Yeah, I'm about to prove it to all of you guys out there. So
prove the haters wrong.
Absolutely, I will do so, and I will show you the walnuts. So but his actual question was, what's the most the body can handle when carbing up to fill up?
Interesting question. I think it's going to depend on quite a lot, because it kind of depends on how depleted you are. Are you depleting and aiming to super compensate? Are you dieting? Are you massing? Like, what's going on? Are you already full of glycogen? But I'm guessing he's asking because we're competing and he's going to be going through a peak week. And there was the recent kind of review paper, or there was a recent paper, and they had the bodybuilders do like a more conservative kind of peaking protocol versus like a deplete phase with a rapid kind of backloading type of style of approach, where in that backload approach, I don't know if they super compensated. I don't know if that was spoken about actually, but they certainly gained more thickness, whereas the guys on just being conservative didn't. So then people would be like, oh, we should always do like the deplete and then kind of super compensate style of approach with where we backload. And then in that approach, they took 8 to 10 grams of carbs in per kilogram on average. But we also don't know what they look like. So you just see the silhouette. So maybe they look really like spilled over and they were storing it in subcutaneous water compartments. Whereas the other guys who maybe didn't expand look shredded because maybe they lost that water, that stress. So I think when it's considering a peak week, I think it's wrong to ever base yourself off these formulas. And one of the ones I had within, because I wrote the peak week chapter in the Ultimate Contest Prep Guide, was for backloading. Often backload is probably like within 3 days, and rapid backload would be 1 day, so 24 hours. And the range that people recommend kind of there is 6 to 15 grams of carbs per kilogram. And that's a huge range. That's over double the difference. So it just varies so much. And this is why in a peak week, we use like morning and evening photos, even some photos in the gym, just keeping a close assessment of how you're looking, but also how you feel, because oftentimes pictures can be shit sometimes. It's actually one of probably my biggest pet peeves is shitty prep pictures from people, because it's so hard to get them consistent. And
not just prep pictures, but shitty pictures in general.
Shitty pictures like selfies, and you're like, I can't even see anything here. So yeah, I would say you can base it off like previous data, so mock peak weeks, refeeds. You can conservatively bring yourself to a rough maintenance through carbohydrates, see how you're looking, potentially push them higher. You've got to track multiple variables to be able to assess whether or not you've filled yourself sufficiently. So I don't think I can give you a black and white finalized answer. I know there are kind of certain amounts the liver can store glycogen, and then you have like muscle glycogen, but then that doesn't take into account supercompensation or whether or not you're depleted or your general activity. So this is why you have to take the visual into account as well and have kind of practiced these things.
Absolutely. And I mean, one of the guys who's known for peaking and carbing up people is Cliff Wilson. And we done a seminar with him in September last year. Recorded the entire thing. That is something that you can purchase over on in our shop. What you also could do, Andrew, is because you are a client, you have free access to our member site. So go over there, and there you can purchase it as a course with questions as well to shit test yourself and to test your knowledge, your newly gained knowledge. And also you get it massively discounted over on our membership site. So I would recommend for someone like you actually to go over to the membership site and actually purchase it there, because you get it a little bit less expensive, or less cheap rather. And there, Cliff Wilson also talks about carbing people up and carbing different type of people up. So there's a huge difference, of course, in the response of individuals to carbing them up, and he specifically talks about it there as well in one of his presentations.
Yeah, it's actually incredible the difference that some people, how they respond. Yeah. And this is why I think, as a general rule of thumb, we're more favorable of the conservative approach, because like the silhouettes showed, like you don't know if that person's spilled over. And if you try and take that study and you're just like, yeah, rapid backload, I'm just going to eat like 10 grams per kilogram of my body weight, and you end up on like, I don't know, 800, 900, 700 grams, and then you're just spilled over the next day. Sure, you look big, but you don't look as shredded.
It also needs to be said then that sometimes it can get or cause very much gastric distress as well, that you are just like bloated as hell and you can't really digest the food properly. Yes, you may look fantastic in regards to the muscle bellies popping out and stuff, but maybe you're not feeling that great overall because it just causes too much of a distress. And then you have to figure out for yourself, like, okay, is it worth then looking like, I would say like 100% peaked, but feeling terrible? Or is it all right to be like 70% peaked, but feeling all right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because a big part of peak week, and I wrote about that again in the Ultimate Contest Prep Guide, is the stress reduction. And I personally really want my client, of course, my goal is to get them looking their best, but I think that is combined with them feeling their best, because if they don't feel good, even if their physique is meant to be looking good, I just can't. If someone feels like shit, it kind of just shows in their physique. Even if it's popping and going well, you're not going to hit your poses as best you could. Your like face on stage, you're not going to be smiling. You're going to be dead in the water. And I think yeah, you see competitors sometimes that look like they've been through war to get to stage, and you're just like, they're just hoping for it to be over and done with, and that will never look good towards a judge. The judge wants you to be like living your best life on stage.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we have time for like 2 more questions, probably. So Pete Dawson asks, what would you do if you had a client who was an actor model who wanted to hypertrophy their jaw masseter muscles for a more interesting facial shape?
So I have to slightly apologize it was Pete, right? Pete Dawson.
Pete, yeah.
So I apologize, Pete, because I think this question has come up a few times and I've kind of avoided it because I absolutely don't have a good answer for you, because I'm not sure that hypertrophy, like every muscle can hypertrophy itself, but jaw muscles and trying to program
eat lots of things. Yes, you may get fat,
chewing
but
gum.
you also get a jacked face.
10 pieces of extra chewing gum.
Have you ever like there's something called Hubba Bubba?
Yes.
Have you ever like when you were a kid, like had like 3 at once or even more?
I've done a lot of chewing gum before.
Very, very exhausting, and your jaw musculature was like very tired.
I have a feeling
maybe that's the key.
I have a feeling, like, actually, to critically answer this, I have a feeling it will be like, if you want your forearms to hypertrophy, just like squeezing a ball probably isn't enough because it's probably not overloading enough. So you need like a weighted, like those, what they call the gripping things that a lot of like, what are they called?
Bros.
Like strong men and like guys that do like arm wrestling do. I think you'd probably have to get one of those for your mouth and have to could do that. And
so
maybe you'll look weird to do it at home.
I'm fit. So I was fishing very, very much when I was younger, right? And there is what's it called again? That one. Oh, shit, what's it called again? Let me just Google that really quickly. I know the name, but I'm just missing it right now. A pike, right? So there is like a metal thing that you can put into the mouth of the pike so that he's not biting, because when you want to take the hook out, right? When he bites you, he has also like teeth that are like hooks, right? And if you pull, then they are getting more into your skin even, right? And that's why you want to have something that protects him, or your hand rather, from him snapping your hand, right? And maybe you want to get something like this on. Always try with that amount of resistance to actually close your mouth. The pike safety, I don't know what it's called.
On this note, I didn't realize The Witcher, the guy that plays The Witcher, was also Superman. And he
didn't know that?
I didn't. I saw it. You know the reason I found out? Because Greg Doucette did a video on whether or not he was natural. And I saw it and I was like, let's see what this is about. And then I was like, oh, he's Superman. Yeah. He has an incredible jaw and really nice butt chin.
Yeah. Henry Cavill is one of
Henry Cavill, that's the one.
Yeah. He's one of the most handsome actors there are, in my opinion. And Katie is agreeing to this one as well.
I think, unfortunately, he would actually probably have to get plastic surgery for that sort of jaw adjustment, I imagine. To actually get the results.
I don't know. Or get on steroids, because I don't know what it is, but there is even like memes on people who jump on steroids and just get like this. People call it fat face look. I mean,
I think, don't we have like more androgen receptors in our upper body versus our lower body, and that's why the traps explode?
Exactly, in the traps and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe the jaw is the same.
I mean, the thing is that a wide jaw is an androgenic thing, right? A muscular trait, a fucking hell, I need to cut that one out. A masculine trait. That's what I wanted to say.
Masculine, yeah.
A masculine trait, and this is due to androgen, or like an androgenic trait. And maybe there is something about that when androgens are higher, that a trait like this is actually more pronounced, because what you also see with people is that they have a higher susceptibility of losing their hair, which is also then caused by, of course, elevated DHT levels, but also then because it's a compartment of androgenetic things, but at the same time also like hair growth overall and a deeper voice, stuff like that.
You have a wide jaw, Pascal.
I do. I took all the steroids in the world. So when I'm ever banned from the UK DFBA, it is due to my wide jaw.
I don't have as wide a jaw, but I have a very prominent forehead. Like, that's another trait, isn't it? Where like the brow is very like over the top.
Yeah. I mean, people always say like, okay, look at those things such as your wrist width, whether you have like
stuff.
Yeah. And whether you have a wide jaw, then you have like a whole potentiality of building a lot of muscle mass. Don't know if there's something to it. Don't know.
Do we have time for one more question?
We have time for one more question. But what I wanted to say is actually, wait a second. I just need to Google that. What is the actress again called who was in Suicide Squad as well?
Oh, I'm terrible with names. I know who you. Oh,
I, Tonya.
I don't even know what I, Tonya is. I'm terrible for this. You're gonna have to find it.
It was Margot Robbie. How in the hell could I forget her name? Probably because she's so beautiful.
Is she the model as well? Is she a model?
Yeah, probably. I mean, she looks so good, and she's just lovely. And Katie and I both agree that Henry Cavill and Margot Robbie would make the ultimate couple, and they would probably cause a world peace by them getting together and doing children.
Oh dear. Is she the main actor in Suicide Squad, the female?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I don't think she's a model. Quinn. There's another woman in there, I think, who's a model. Charlotte said.
Oh yeah. She is Sarah Delevingne,
who I didn't think was as attractive as her, but
she has bushy eyebrows as well, so
yes.
Lots of androgen on her body. So yeah, let's do another question. Where are we? I will take a shorter, right? From your experience with clients, do you realize females need slightly more fat for hormone regulation? I personally do, not for performance though.
I would have the question of how do you find that out? Unless you're getting bloods regularly with an individual and they're obviously tracking their fat and you're kind of changing it according to their hormone levels. I don't know how you'd ever know that unless you're talking about competitors and you're talking about dieting them, or just, well, I hope Gen Pop don't lose their period, because I just don't think that's necessary for a Gen Pop. I call anyone who's not a competitor, I'm calling Gen Pops. That's a lot of people. So there could be a lot of listeners who are Gen Pop, but incredibly competitive in their own right, but not taking it to stage, just to say that. But yeah, if you're not a competitor, I don't think you should be losing your period. And I guess that's the only way, maybe in a contest prep, when you diet down a female, keeping them on higher fats, you may be saying is keeping their period around longer. But that's nothing ever I've tried to do, and I more so think that kind of the loss of period, and it may not be related to this at all, but I think that's more related to kind of energy availability and stress levels than any kind of amount of fat intake that they're having. So no, I can't say I have, and I don't know. I'd like to hear from whoever asked, like, how do they even monitor that, and how are they assessing that higher fat is keeping hormones at a better place?
I think that Mano Hanselmans once did an article about that. I think, but I can't really recall, to be honest. And I'm just basing it on my own personal experiences working with females, and I haven't seen that as well. I mean, relatively speaking, of course, they are smaller individuals, and from an overall perspective, from a totality perspective, when you compare like a female fat intake with a male fat intake, of course, it may look drastically lower, and thus it could be like, that doesn't seem healthy. But I had and have competitors who go down to something like 25 to 30 grams, and it's all right. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. I think generally men and women do very well on carbohydrates, especially competitors who are training hard, resistance training, obviously very lean. I don't see the benefit of necessarily trying to give them a higher fat intake because they're female.
I have not seen it. That doesn't mean that, of course, there couldn't be something to it, but I've not seen that, to be honest.
Cool. Does that conclude this episode?
Yes.
Of it, the improvement season, not revived to stage yet.
Yes. That time will come, though. You need to decide when that time comes. Just let me know at some point, like, Pascal, today is revived to stage. All right, then I'm all on board with that one.
My plan with that is to, once I've finished, I do plan a primer phase once I'm down to like the mid 170s. And then after that, I think that's my revive to stage time. I'm trying to psychologically not think I'm in prep at the moment because I don't think I will like the idea of thinking I'm in prep for like a year. It just feels like a lot to me. So I'm kind of thinking I'm just in a diet phase now, and it helps telling people that I'm doing that rather than prep. Although sometimes it's just easier to tell people I'm in prep, and then they're like, oh, cool. Like, yeah, you don't have to eat this thing I'm trying to force you to eat. Not that I get into those situations very often.
Not anymore, probably.
No.
Yeah, no, cool. Absolutely. I think that we plugged enough throughout this episode.
Awesome.
And we don't need to plug anymore because we are always now throwing in short teasers and short ads, right? We needed to step it up a little bit on that front. For everyone who's annoyed by that, sorry for that, but it just is what needs to be done, kind of, to get the word across sometimes. And I still hope you love us. But if you made it to this part of this episode, I assume that you do. Or you hate us so much that you just want to be like the entire time listening to us and be like, oh, those fucking idiots, I hate those. Right, and yeah.
What is it? Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Thank you, guys. We love you.
And thank you for the thumbs down. That one guy who's always doing it when the episode is coming live.